Hi everyone, my name is Edna.
And I'm Mercy.
And this is The Real Conversation.
Your trusted guide to everything real estate here in Kenya.
And we want to say a huge thank you to Centum Real Estate for making this happen. They are the biggest real estate developers in East and Central Africa. Be sure to check them out on all socials at Centum Re.
And also, if you haven't, hit the subscribe button. Follow us on all our platforms. We are on TikTok, on Instagram. We also have Spotify, so make sure you listen in. And if you want to see the faces behind the voices, be sure to check us on YouTube, on Centum Real Estate's YouTube channel. So today, Edna, do you want to do the intro?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I know most people have this question and it's been coming up in the socials and everywhere. Airbnbs. What are Airbnbs?
Yes. Is it
How
what?
do I start my BNB? Do I rent this property of mine? Do I make it an Airbnb? How do I start? Where's the money? How much do I need? We have someone who will answer all of these questions, and he's in the room with us
Today.
Sana,
Yeah.
Dennis. Dennis Okanja is long-term and short-term rental consultant. I hope I've gotten that right.
Yes.
Good. But you can introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do on a day-to-day, and then after that, tell us how your week has been.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for having me on.
Karibu.
This is my first experience being behind a camera, so forgive me if I'm a bit nervous.
You're with us.
You're with us. It's okay.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Eh.
My name is Dennis Okanya, not Okanja.
Oh.
Oh my
So
God.
turudie tena.
No. It's okay. But yeah, thank you for having me on. I am a short-term and long-term rental consultant. I think I gave myself the name because there isn't such a space that is very clearly defined, such as Airbnb. We call it Airbnb, but in reality, that's the actual name you should call it. Airbnb is the company itself. And I'm glad to come on here and give some knowledge on how to do Airbnb. I've been doing it for the last 4 years now. Yeah, but primarily on a consulting end. So I'm there to hold clients along the way while they learn about how to do Airbnb, how to set up listings. Basically, all the questions that Edna has talked about, I will be here to give you answers today.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very excited. At least I know what to do with a bed sitter after this episode.
Yeah.
So at least after this episode, guys, be ready. If you have seen that bed sitter in Kilimani, in Ronda, in Roslyn, in Two Rivers, at least after this episode, you'll have the checklist of what to consider when you want to start your own B&B business. And hopefully create generational wealth because
Yeah, that's
financial
the point.
freedom. So I think tunaweza na how our weeks have been.
Dennis, how was your week?
How's your week?
My week was mundane, if I can put it that way. It was mostly meeting you guys first. I think that was the beginning of my week.
Yeah.
I heard about the opportunity and I was a bit on the fence on whether to come or to just...
It's your first time
Yeah.
in such a space.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my week has been prepping for this, trying to consolidate my thoughts so that I can answer the questions with a lot more clarity. And up to yesterday, 2 a.m. when I slept.
Wow.
So I've had just coffee and we're here on set. But I'm really excited to do this.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you're giving it thought and value. At least some people really need time to think about how they're going to give people the best value. I appreciate
I'm
people
so
like
happy.
you. Edna.
My week. Oh my God, my week has just been a week, honestly. I'm feeling a bit tired, more than usual, which I don't know why, but I don't know. My week has just been busy
Yeah.
and I'm tired.
There are those weeks, by
But
the way.
ni Friday, so I get it.
Yes.
I understand.
After this, tunaenda mahali.
Home.
But me, I think my week has been great. Yesterday was Labor Day. It was also my sister's birthday, so we went out to celebrate her. Watoto hizi siku, oh my God, I don't think you guys are ready for Gen Alpha.
They are not.
You guys, munadhani Gen Z are the thing.
No.
You guys are not ready for Gen Alpha. Setting your boundaries.
Oh, she set a boundary with you, Jana.
Ali set a boundary. Akaniambia, Mercy, can you give me space, please? I need to breathe.
Wow.
Nikasema, hold up. But even daily, I was just excited, and I was thinking through it, and I was saying I can't wait to see how their growth unfolds, and like what they stand for, because Gen Z's is mostly about changing the wave, bringing kurudisha the voices that were brought down. So I really want to see. I'm very, I think, happy and excited of what the future holds and what that generation has to offer. Because some people say they are babies, but they are very emotional,
They are not
intelligent babies.
They are not. I know my brother is in the Gen Alpha group,
category,
and he speaks so well. He's very eloquent, and he tells my parents, no other thing, your boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, they want to go somewhere and hajiski. Apparently these days there is choice. There is freedom of choice in African households. Nasemanga, I don't feel like I want to go. Feeling. Na haendi.
Unakumbuka ungeza sema hiyo kitu in your household?
No.
Hata sahi, I don't think I
think I'm scared. Do you guys have a Gen Alpha in your household?
Yes, 2 of them actually.
Umeona their relationship with your parents?
Yeah, actually not even with my parents. I won't speak necessarily for them because I'm not there on a day-to-day basis. But with me, sometimes I feel like I'm speaking to my peers because they're very well versed in these things. Paka inafika point you're like, hey guys, you need to calm down. There's a difference kidogo. Let's not try to cross over the boundary.
But I think it's something to think about.
Yeah. In their books, actually, wanafunza emotional intelligence in grade 7, if I'm not wrong. So something that I found out when I was in uni, now my brother knows what emotional intelligence is. There was a time he was telling me, oh, now I understand why sometimes a parent can come kwa nyumba akiwa mad. It's not about me.
It's about them. I'm excited. It's a very exciting feeling. But anyway, let's get back into it, and hopefully Gen Alphas will be the ones we host in our BNBs.
Yeah.
Because today tunaanzisha BNBs businesses. So I think we can start with maybe Dennis giving us a run through of how you started it. How was the experience? Did you start big? Did you start small?
What was the thought process?
What was the thought process when you were starting it?
Maybe what were you doing before you started? I don't know. Tell us the journey.
Give us your story.
Okay. When I started Airbnb, it wasn't necessarily something I sought out to begin because initially my sister is the one who actually started Airbnb. I didn't know too much of it at the time because I was still in school and she'd already finished campus.
Okay.
So when she moved to Ruaka, that's when she introduced me to the concept of Airbnb. I had never heard of it. And she was explaining how it works. And my first question was, you're giving somebody your home? A stranger to come and stay inside?
Yeah.
That sounds crazy and also fascinating at the same time. So I wanted to find out how it worked. So she took me to the listings. I saw how everything was set up, and she has very good taste. I actually get it from her. And I got curious basically on the inner workings of how it works. And she took me through everything, and I was like, oh, this might be something I'm interested in, because at the time I was already doing every single Kenyan who's left campus, I'm sure you've heard of something called transcription.
Yeah, I have done
If you haven't, if you guys are coming from a lot of money, then transcription is something you should definitely look into. But I was doing transcription at the time, and I wanted to try something different. And I told her, okay, take me as an apprentice and I will come on board and I will start to see how you do everything. And slowly I can figure out a process. And the one thing I've always tried to employ in my life is to focus a lot on process. So when I was monitoring how she was doing everything, I started to pick up on it. And then I started to kind of figure out a way I will do it hypothetically. And it got to a point when she got a job. And she wasn't there to run the day-to-day of everything. So she was like, I've taught you up to this point. Can you try to fill in the gaps whenever I'm not around? Maybe checking in guests, things like those. And at the beginning, I I still am very introverted, and it was a challenge. First of all, trying to talk to guests
Yeah.
and getting into the becoming eloquent, per se. So welcoming them, being very courteous. Sometimes when you have a really bad day and
You
you're
have to
meeting
be,
somebody,
yeah.
you still have to put on your game face,
Yeah.
be nice and everything. And the learning curve was very steep at the beginning because sometimes she would be gone for work maybe for a month, 2 months. And it
You're
got to a
left
point.
alone.
Yeah, I was left alone. And I'm glad she did it. At the time, I wasn't too appreciative of it because trying to shoulder that plus whatever I'm trying to do for myself on the side it was a bit of a stress to juggle everything. But once I got the hang of it, I was like, by the way, can you leave me? Let me try to
Do
change
it.
things up,
Yeah.
kidogo, see how I can do everything my way. Try to implement a couple of things I'd learned because when I was beginning, this isn't necessarily a school of Airbnb.
Yeah.
You kind of have to learn as you do it.
And also the concept was very, very new.
Yeah, very, very new.
Yeah.
Because this was back in 2019 and just pre-COVID. And I got a lot of resources online. A couple of people who shared some really good material on how to start, how to take photographs of a listing, how to write templates on Airbnb for guests, how to okay, on Airbnb, for instance, there are a lot of forms you have to fill, basically, so that when somebody's coming to make a reservation, they can see what type of amenities you have. You can try to describe the property that you have. You can try to describe everything that they can access, activities around, things like those. It was a lot of information all at the same time. But once I started to get a hang of it, I was like, this might actually be something I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I decided, you know what? Let me try run it on the side on whatever I do so I can try to juggle. And how many years? 4 years later, here we are. Yeah.
That's a really nice like
Origin
journey.
story.
It's a and I vile umesema origin, it's an original like it's an original story. It's good for people to see like what's happening in real life. See ati tunaona the people on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People from abroad, because now the concept was from Europe and US
Yeah,
now.
US.
People coming with that concept, at least someone who is Kenyan and they've experienced it. I think that's a really good story.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, let's say it's me, Edna. I didn't have your sister.
Yeah.
I want to start an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Like, let's even start with I'm looking for a location.
The
Maybe
criteria.
I'm now starting to canvas, looking
Yeah.
at places. So what do I do? Where do I start? Basically, how do you start?
Okay. I don't have a method specifically because over the years, everybody has their own origin story. Some come into Airbnb because they have properties, for instance, maybe they bought apartments and maybe the rental income doesn't seem sufficient enough. So they're trying something different.
Nice.
Yeah. Others come, maybe they have a pool of funds. Maybe people are going into retirement. They want a way to invest.
Be making money.
Yeah, and get some passive income along the side. And so everybody has their own origin story. So when somebody approaches to start Airbnb, I think first of all, you kind of have to understand that it's a business at the end of the day. And in doing a business, you have to first have a philosophy of why you want to do the business. So if you are approaching from a retirement perspective, how you get into it will be very different from somebody maybe who is trying to convert their properties into short-term rentals. You see? So I think first of all is getting the why you want to do it. That's the most important question you can answer. And even whenever I'm approaching or somebody approaches me on how to do Airbnb, I ask them, okay, what do you want to achieve as a result of doing this? Are you looking for passive cash flow? Are you trying to make sure if maybe somebody has bought an apartment, are you trying to pay off your mortgage, for instance? So everybody has very different goals
different, right.
as to why they come to do Airbnb.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main question. And then once you have answered the why of it, the how of it is the next question. So the how of it involves, one, your budget. How much money are you willing to spend on setting up a listing? So it comes in at different budgets. In Kenya, it's a bit, how can I put it? The concept is very widespread right now, but the reason I see why people do it differ from people to people, and sometimes the why first also factors in into the how you do
how
it.
you'll do it.
So if you're maybe retiring and you're using your pension, for instance, to come and open your Airbnb, automatically you already had a source of income. So when you're coming into this, you're not particularly focused on how much will be coming from it, but
Yeah.
rather for how long
Yeah.
it'll be working.
Yeah.
So once you are at a certain stage, everybody has a different budget. Sometimes more so the clientele will be definitely a bit older, somebody who's matured a bit in life, because the entry point for Airbnb is actually very low. Now I'm speaking about Airbnb, the platform itself. Joining, you can start from as low as a bed sitter up to a mansion. So your budget will determine which category you will fall into, and from there we will adjust for your specific preference.
Okay.
And yeah, and also the third thing, which is not necessarily aligned with the business mindset, is whether you enjoy it. I think that's also an important question sometimes that people may lack to address at the beginning. Is like in my case, I do it because I enjoy it. I enjoy the experience of hosting people, of meeting people. That's why I continue doing it all this while. But somebody else might be approaching it from purely a business perspective. So when they're coming in, you tailor everything mostly aligned towards profit. I see. Whereas for somebody else, it might
Who
be
enjoys
something
it.
that they
Yeah.
enjoy, so you can tailor the experience a lot more. So sometimes you're going for scale. Somebody wants 5 Airbnbs. We may not necessarily figure out the minutiae of everything at the beginning, but their angle is more so for profit. But somebody else might be joining just purely because of passion. Some people have the expandable income, they can actually come and do this as a hobby, or maybe they might even have homes where they want to beautify and come and convert to Airbnbs. So that might be a huge filter for which segment of the market you're going to be falling into, and for everybody it's different. So it's up to you to tell me, okay, maybe my budget is say $1,000,000 so we're going to start from this now will filter out your location, the size of the house you will get, how well you're going to furnish it. So sometimes you can go from as high as importing furniture and all the household goods to you're
Just
going to your
leaving
local
there.
carpenter kutengeneza furniture hapo na
Tuliambiwa
pale.
Otieno is the best.
Not come out. But anyway.
Hiyo ni story ya baadaye.
Yeah, so it ranges between with your budget, and from that we can decide, okay, this is how we're going to structure your Airbnb.
You've mentioned location, the property type. First of all, it's the bad. Okay, first of all is the why, and then
The how.
The how now.
Yeah.
The how in a factor now. The budget, the location, the property type.
Yeah.
Now, in your experience now, consulting
Yeah.
for people to help them set up short-term rentals. Are
Yeah.
there like any specific areas or any specific property types that you've seen work best for some people? Which ones are the ones like you would recommend to someone maybe to start with? Tuanze na mtu mwenye they're starting, this is their first one, and then maybe for someone who is looking for mini and then anataka kutry it for long term.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I will maybe differentiate this into 2 categories. So let's say you're starting in Nairobi.
Yeah.
There are currently over 10,000 Airbnbs
Okay.
in Nairobi, which is a lot if you actually think about it. And depending on the budget, you still factor in primarily, because if you have a budget of, say, 300,000, automatically your locations are going to be very limited. And according to rent.
Yeah.
Okay, so it depends. If you own something, automatically your location has been decided.
Yeah.
But if you're coming in as somebody who wants to rent, your budget includes everything. So the transportation cost, the furnishing cost, paying your lease deposit as well for your rent. Then you have to leave some extra for emergencies. You also have to factor in stuff like registering your Airbnbs in case you're going to go to the government, and all those minutiae to do with the TRA. So all those things are going to factor in within your budget. So if I say location, automatically everybody wants something nice.
Yeah.
Yes. But also the people who are paying your clients now, your guests, also have their own different pocket sizes. So if you're primarily targeting somebody who is in a, let me say, in the suburbs, for instance. So if you're going for anywhere around, say, Nyayo or Kasarani or Mirema, automatically your Airbnb and your location is going to factor primarily in how you're going to set up everything. Because if you know you don't have the best roads, if you don't have the best amenities, maybe it doesn't have a pool, gym, and all those extra things, you definitely know, okay, now I'm going to be falling into this category. So if you do a study of the market, and for instance, somebody wants to open an Airbnb, say on Mirema. And Mirema is very popular for frequenting because of the clubs that are around. And whenever there are going to be any events around Kasarani, you definitely know every Friday, where is everybody going to be? Mirema. They're going to be on the various bars that are around there. So if you're going to be setting up a listing, you automatically know your clientele is going to be mostly guys who are going out for a Friday night. They just want something for the night, and they're gone the next day. If it's somebody, if you're going to set up somewhere maybe in the middle, now in the middle it will depend now on your rate. How much do you anticipate on charging? Because if you come up with a budget, automatically you have to do the math on how much you're going to cost to set up everything, which will also subsequently determine your nightly rate. So if you want to charge, say, 3,000 shillings a night, you already know, okay, I'm going to be fitting in X and Y category of whatever location you're in. So say if you are in Ruaka, for instance, let me give that example. You know which side of Ruaka you're going to be charging 3,000. So everything is very clearly defined according to the apartments you'll find. So I think for budget, it is better to assess it on a person by person basis. I can't tell you starting at 300,000 is wrong, starting at $1 million is wrong, starting at 5 million is wrong. Everybody has their different goals and how much they're willing to fund them depending on their expandable income, and that automatically categorizes you into one area of Nairobi, for instance. If you're going to the coastal side, it changes dramatically as well. Real estate there is starting to come up. The last time I was there in October, people are now building apartments proper, like the way we are doing in Kilimani. If you go to Kilimani, it's just green everywhere because buildings are on the come up. And Coast is experiencing the same boom, not necessarily to the same extent that Nairobi is, but when you go there, automatically depending on the population and the amount of expendable income the society in whatever town you're speaking about has, also will determine how you're going to set up. So if you go to somewhere random and set up a really expensive Airbnb without figuring out who you're targeting and who is around you, can they access whatever you're offering them? So if you're in Mirema and 3,000 is a friendly price, you will definitely get booked. If you go to Runda and you have a mansion and you're charging, I don't know, 30,000 a night, you will still have your own clientele. So that one is a question that is tailored particularly just for the person who's setting up. And whenever I meet somebody, we discuss, like, this is how much I have to spend.
There's a lot of thought going into this.
Into it.
Yeah.
A lot of
You have to be keen.
the end in mind. You have to think about how much
What you really
want. Who is your target?
Yes.
How much will your target audience accept to pay?
Yeah.
And then from that now ndio una panga how your house will look like.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. And now for you in the beginning, how did you financially plan to, let's say, start an Airbnb? Did you save? How long did you save? Because now let's say you had already targeted where you want.
Yeah.
You probably know this is how much I need. How did you ensure you are set to go
Financially.
to start your Airbnb?
Well, I did not, which is kind of fortunate, unfortunate.
It's a
for me.
blessing.
Yes. My sister helped out a lot because she'd already begun doing it.
The process.
So I was coming into something that wasn't necessarily well oiled, but I could come and learn something and try to apply it. So a lot of, in my case, that's why I'm more of a consultant and less of a host, is I enjoy spreading it rather than keeping it for myself.
Yeah.
I think I enjoy the minutia of trying to
set it up.
setting it up,
Yeah.
listening to people's stories. I think that's what interests me a lot more. And this is kind of something that comes as a consequence of that, even being here. And I didn't have, or that wasn't my initial goal. My sister had already done a lot of the setup, so mine was just to come in and optimize. Okay, so this is what I've learned about doing XYZ. This is how I'd like us to take photos. This is other amenities I'd like us to provide. I've done a bit of a market analysis, looking at other listings, our competitors, what are they doing, even in the same location. So if I'm seeing something that is very good from them, I tell, okay, we can try this. Let's try take this angle. We can add X, Y amenity to differentiate us from. So mine was more so in the extras. So maybe we need a new couch. So I can't really say, okay, my budget was 60,000.
Yeah.
It doesn't really account for the reality of my situation.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, it might be very different.
I think
like-
you're
yeah.
our big sister. Now since we don't have a big sister to do all that for us, you're here. Because now I know if I have, or maybe I want to start and I tell you I want to do it in Riverbank, you're going to tell me how much I might need, how do I list it, the photos I need to take, the price I should put out there. So yeah, you're our big sister. We don't have to struggle.
And actually saying your story are people personal. It depends with person to person.
Yeah.
For the people who are also, if you want to start, we have an episode that's coming out on how you can manage your personal finances.
Yeah, if it hasn't
come out before.
Yeah.
But there's an episode on how you can manage your personal finances to help you start your real estate journey. And it doesn't mean you have to go into the capital intensive of I have to buy a property.
No.
You can start small. How he's saying you can rent. You can just rent your car own. As long as you've done your own research, you can make it happen. So be sure to watch that episode. I think we can link it below.
Yeah,
it will pop up and then you will see. Go and watch it and try and find a way of how you can manage your finances so that you can start this journey. And I have another question. Let's talk day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
Let's talk managing so many BNBs, because now beside you being a consultant, you also help some people who have set up their own and they do not have the time to manage. So how does your day look like? How do you help yourself? Because I know it can be overwhelming. If hosting, mimi kuhost tu familia nasikianga nikaa tutapigana. How does it work for you? How do you help yourself?
I think now I may have a better answer than compared to
4 years,
4
years ago.
back.
I think at the beginning it was hectic because I didn't know what I was doing and learning everything on top of trying to pursue my own personal goals on the side.
Yeah.
It was very extreme. Sometimes you don't sleep the same day you wake up. Every day you're up maybe 10, 11 because you slept really late. But I think now we have a system in place, and I have a team of people who we work together with, and they've really gone a long way in assisting to streamline day-to-day processes. Because initially I was doing everything
Alone.
So when I started, I wasn't particular. Okay, sometimes I tend to be a bit picky, and at the beginning when I was joining my sister, she was doing it well, but then there were things that were kind of nagging me. So a lot of the time, before I found the correct people to come and assist on the team, I was doing it myself. So I was actually cleaning the Airbnbs after checkout. I was meeting the clients, and it was a lot at the time. And I think most of when I did it initially, it was kind of that stubbornness of trying to do everything yourself. Yeah. And I think finding people to assist you, setting up processes so we communicate check-in times. I share the calendars with the housekeepers. We try to know the guards and all the staff that are working at the different apartments. So in case maybe I have an emergency at, say, 1 a.m. and the guest is stranded at check-in, maybe they're struggling to open a lockbox. You have somebody who can assist them without calling you at 1 a.m. and like, hey, nimekwama kwa mlango, unaweza kuja utufungulie. Yeah, so I think having that system in place where you can, and even on the various platforms that we use, so in terms of managing prices, because there are a lot of pricing strategies that come into play whenever you're doing pricing for the apartment. So it's an entire system where you kind of have to organize everything top to bottom, find the right people who fit into every single aspect. Everybody clearly knows their roles, so that even if maybe like, say for instance right now my phone is on silent, but in case a reservation comes through, somebody can come and cover for me, and maybe as an extra co-host I can come and say, hey, Dennis isn't available at the moment, but I'll assist you with your check-in, because guests need to be coddled. So at the beginning bad, now better.
Yeah.
Mimi may get independence to interdependence.
Yeah.
Like
need
you
to
can't
learn
do
to-
it peke
You can't
yako.
do everything.
You can't do it peke yako.
Yeah.
You need a team. And I think that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And okay, let me ask you. You said now it's better, but what is one big challenge that you've consistently faced in management, or even now, let's say having the Airbnb? What is one thing that, because I know sometimes guests leave houses crazy. People don't
That's
have
one
home
challenge.
training. Tell us.
Housekeeping.
It's
I
the
think
biggest.
housekeeping is the biggest challenge
Yeah.
you can resolve. And I think once you get past the biggest hurdles of setting up budget, finding a location, going through all that motions, it's actually how long you will do it for. So the second philosophy of it is maintenance. So sometimes trying to impart that philosophy in a team can be very challenging, because whenever you're hiring for these types of roles, it depends. Some people can get it on a contractual basis.
Yeah.
Some get it on a permanent basis.
Yeah.
But then because Airbnb is an ebb and flow kind of business, sometimes you might have bookings for days and sometimes it's dry. So you can't necessarily afford to have everybody on a permanent payroll. You have to take a lot of people on contract. But that means they also have the flexibility to leave you at any time, which is bad and good at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes trying to create a philosophy of maintenance where whenever maybe the housekeeper comes to the house, they have a process. So
Checklist.
yes, checklist. So check, are the keys there? Is the doormat gone? Walk into the house.
Theft is another challenge, by the way.
Yeah. I actually kind of categorize it as the same, housekeeping and theft, because it might come from the guest and also your housekeepers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a double-edged sword, because part of trying to drill the team in is also entrusting that you can give them the full process of how everything works,
Yeah.
and hoping that they might not end up double crossing you, because they understand how it works so well.
Yeah.
They can also use it against you.
Yeah.
So setting up cleaning procedures when they come to the house, checking for everything, checking for damage, minute things. So there are things that need time-to-time maintenance. So for instance, I will give an example of taps and shower cubicles.
Yeah.
Because of glass and hard water in Nairobi, a lot of boreholes.
Yeah.
Knowing, okay, this is the time we should schedule cleaning of these glasses. So it's a lot of tiny things that seem irrelevant whenever you walk into any listing. I'm sure you've used Airbnb.
Eh.
You see the listing is beautiful, it's clean and everything.
There's
and
a lot of thought.
yeah, a lot of thought actually goes behind into trying to drill in that philosophy, so that when they are there, they're my eyes. So I trust that they will see if there's a cockroach. Tell me, hey, we need to fumigate this place. Maybe it's scheduled for washing machine. I had it producing a weird noise. Can you get it checked? Because ultimately, the person who saves you the most amount of money in this business is the people who are at the listing every day, which is the housekeepers.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest challenge to resolve. And once you have that drilled in, it becomes very difficult to fail in the other aspects of running your Airbnb.
I think talking about challenges, is that like, I think you've met maybe people who want to scale up. They've had their bed sitter, their one bedroom. Atuzitangi hizi siku bed sitter. Studio. They've had their studio and they've had it for a while, and now they're thinking, oh, I want to scale up, have maybe 5 one bedrooms, have maybe 2 bedrooms, like what challenge do you think they face? Maybe financial, what challenges do they face, Sana?
So I would say in Kenya particularly,
Yeah.
it is two challenges. And the first one goes back to what I spoke about, the philosophy of why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Because once you're starting to do short-term rentals or long-term rentals, if you have a clear picture of how you want to do it, a lot of these issues of the long-term strategy are actually addressed at the beginning.
Yeah.
So if you're getting it into it so that you can expand,
You already
and
have it.
you already have the capital, so automatically it's kind of like a filter. You just can't meet somebody who's maybe started their first job and they want to set up 5 studios because they don't have a philosophy of even getting to
Yeah.
that point in the first place. But once you address the philosophy of why, one, it determines first which side of Airbnb you want to target. So if you want to say scale 5 studios, automatically you know which category you fall into, and that also determines which location you're going to be going for. And depending on your budget, it also determines where you're going to be setting up your listings. So I think having a philosophy of why you want to do it and how you want to do it is very important. And sometimes if you get into it, maybe ulisikia hey, unajua Airbnb siku hizi iko na
Iko na,
pesa, naona nani Shiro amenunua Probox.
Umesikia ati akasema acha pia mimi
Hata pia mimi niingia, which
Eh.
unfortunately is a way Kenyans go about
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Unaona
A
tu
lot.
amesucceed and you try
Yeah.
to replicate the success without
Really.
figuring
Figuring it
out.
out, alafu pesa inapotea.
Hey, unaingia
Nasema,
inapotea.
"Shiro alifanya lakini
Hakutuambia
hakutuambia
ukweli.
ukweli."
Hakutuambia ukweli.
Right?
Baby ni ngumu. Unaona? So I think that's the biggest downfall that I've seen, including myself, because at the beginning, even I had my own pitfalls, even when I tried to expand myself. And I think that's one huge thing. But the second thing is finances.
Yeah.
Because in Kenya, we do a lot of arbitrage. So arbitrage is where you go take an apartment from an owner and you go and sublet it and you set up your apartment and everything, and then you start marketing it. And the biggest downside is accessing the capital. And I say this particularly in terms of credit, because currently my sister is in Switzerland, and I was trying to figure out how people do Airbnb in other countries to see what the government, maybe for instance, has set up in terms of incentives and the financial structures they've set in place to encourage such businesses. And in Kenya, because Airbnb has been here for now about 10 years, give or take, but because there isn't necessarily a policy that is driven towards regulating and encouraging Airbnbs
Yeah.
in a structured way, not necessarily just because we can
Yeah.
do it, there also isn't any financial incentive for people to come and maybe take loans, you see.
Yeah.
So maybe if real estate companies, for instance, because now Airbnb has gotten to a point where you can't ignore it, actually developers are now building apartments designed to target hosts because of the boom in Airbnb.
Yeah.
So with that, you at this point you will have thought that maybe banks will set up some structures to try and give people finances where they can come and give you a boost. Say, hey, maybe we'll give you a loan for $1 million, and you can come and set up everything, or we might even set up everything on your behalf, and you do the management and everything, and you can pay us back. Basically, just structures to help somebody who doesn't have the capital upfront, because I think that's the thing that differentiates us
With other
with other countries.
Yeah.
Switzerland does something like that.
Yes.
Hey, how's theirs?
Come again.
How's their structure or maybe incentive or finance?
It's very structured mostly from a tax perspective,
Ah, okay.
because unfortunately in Kenya we don't have the structure very well defined. Maybe you find in a lot of countries where they've set up incentives for people to come and join. One, you can take a loan to actually buy Airbnbs, not even just come and sublet. You can buy the property and do the furnishing yourself, and you can become a host and make that money that way, and then paid back at the end. And you find also a lot of tax incentives in terms of stuff like deductibles, where you can come and say, this is my expenditure.
Yeah.
And all those things factor into the final price. So by the time you see somebody's charging X amount of money per night,
Isha.
there's a lot of accounting that has happened behind it, whether it's assisted or coming out of pocket. And I think that's the biggest differentiator. So you can find somebody maybe who's 25, like has 20 listings.
Yeah.
In Kenya, it's very difficult to replicate.
It's a TikTok.
They have, that's what they do for life and for everything.
Yeah.
There's a TikTok. There's a side of TikTok niliangukanga siku moja, and it was just, I was scrolling. I'm just saying, make 1 million USD with me.
They count.
As a 23-year-old, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
must
Yeah.
be nice.
It's really nice.
But now I'm hearing that their government actually supports them.
Supports
Yeah.
the system.
That's really good.
Yeah. So when you give that kind of incentive to people to access credit, and also credit that is favorable, where somebody, because you understand how the business works,
Yeah.
and I say this is also informed by how it works, so you understand that there are going to be low seasons, and sometimes there might be impact in terms of maybe, say you have a huge incident in Nairobi and people don't want to travel, and they're like, we have a travel advisory out that impacts. So you'll find like on platforms like Airbnb and booking.com, a lot of those things are set up, and you can set up such a structure with guests. But in Kenya, trying to achieve something similar,
It's a long way.
it's a very long way.
A very long way.
Yeah.
Icebreaker kabla twende. What's the weirdest thing umaibiwa?
Kwa Airbnb. Let me see. Pegs.
Guys,
guys,
be better.
20 bob. Guys, why are you stealing pegs?
Pegs. Ashtrays was nenda sana.
Ashtray
okay,
nayo,
yeah, I
I
understand.
understand watu wanaenza.
Yeah, ashtrays. What else?
Utensils?
Utensils, yes. Those the experience are utensils. I've seen people who've been
Wameibiwa.
maybe masufuria vitu kama hizo.
Sufuria.
Okay, sufuria
Yeah.
is big. I meant like a spoon.
A spoon.
Mtu alibeba sufuria kwa bag.
Yeah. Actually, unapata kama depending on where you set up your listing, there isn't too much monitoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So utapata mtu ataingia tu na abebe kitu, and if you don't, a housekeeper akuja akipitia checklist confirm sufuria ni 5. What's
Sufuria
missing? Unapata sufuria ni 4. Maybe after 3 months, guest is like, you don't have sufurias in your house. You're like,
Gas. Umaibiwa. Cause nilisikianga kuna time watu walikuwa wanaendanga Airbnb kuiba gas TikTok.
What is with the economy?
hawaibi gas siku hizi.
Awaibi gas.
Mtu anakuja anapika githeri, anachemsha njahe, kwanza
Oh my
wajahe.
God.
Hey.
This is very controversial, but I respect that. Juu wao umetoka na
Innovative thinking.
beans.
Ametoka na beans.
Amesema they will use that listing and that money they are paying for.
Oh my
100,
God.
but that's crazy, guys.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Aki, I am proud of them for thinking like
For
that. but
thinking
that's so sad for
entrepreneurially,
you.
but that's so sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
Oh,
pole.
that's sad. And then, okay, before I ask the question that I wanted to ask, how then do you avoid this? Because, let's say, does your housekeeper come before I check out? Because that has never happened to me. I've never checked out when the housekeeper has come in, which means most times I will check out when the housekeeper has not yet come in. So there's no way for
Yeah.
you to check if I've taken anything.
But kuna some places the housekeeper will come.
yeah,
They will ask you to wait for the housekeeper ndio umpe the key.
Oh.
Kuna some places they will, but sasa there are some places nimefanya kama wewe. I
me
checked out
most.
a long time ago. Check out ni 10, mimi nilitoka 6 a.m.
Yeah, because napigiwa naambiwa tu acha key kwa
gate. So utafanya aje? Theft, how do you manage? How do you manage theft?
Okay. I think it falls into 2 categories. One, which is the most dominant, is, and I will say this unfortunately, don't msinikujie vibaya. But I think it's more so Kenyan culture,
It's
which is, there are things which are very good about us, but then there are things which we encourage
Sini free.
that,
you see that thing,
Mentality
like
sini free.
sinimelipa
Sinimelipa.
Ama
Yeah.
si-
chemsha
yes.
hizo njahi kwako friend.
Exactly. So we take advantage of the opportunity tumepewa saa zingine and we misuse it. And a lot of the time when you find Kenyans come to book Airbnb, the reason why you hear these stories is also more testament to that culture. And when initially we were beginning, we weren't too aware because we got in its vibes, like everybody, the experience is good, so
Sai
we
uko macho.
will entrust. Right now, I think it goes two different ways. So one, which I will recommend, is have home insurance because it's inevitable. Somebody will come and they will be tempted by something and they will take it. Or somebody will come and maybe they have, I don't know, an argument and wapasue kitu.
Wapasue TV yenye umenunua hapo.
Yeah.
55, 63 inch.
Somebody comes and breaks your TV.
Yeah.
So having home insurance, and the reason why I said two categories is if you're taking reservations offline or online. So offline particularly means maybe somebody who walks in, they get the apartment and they're like, hey, I'm looking for an Airbnb. Can you guys situate me somewhere? And they go to your house. So in such instances, I would recommend first have some identity. I think sometimes the Airbnb kind of has a bad reputation right now. Everybody assumes whatever goes on in Airbnbs is not good per se. So I think collect identity. Kenyans sometimes are hesitant to accept, or actually just guests in general, not even Kenyans, because the clientele is very wide. Ask for identification. Make sure you tell them these are my house policies. I will require you to share your ID or your passport if you're coming from abroad. And whenever you're getting to the house, this is everything that is here. Nothing is broken. And in case you notice something, make sure to tell me, hey, I noticed the shower maybe isn't working, so I don't assume it's you who spoiled the shower. And I think that more so leans towards the aspect of trusting that whoever's coming to the Airbnb isn't...
Collecting ideas is nice.
Yes.
It's a nice idea.
Yeah.
It will save you from drama.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The second side is the online side. Now, if guests are booking through platforms, a lot of platforms tend to have damage insurance covered or insurance for every stay.
Okay.
So you find like Airbnb has something called air cover. So whenever somebody books through Airbnb, I have peace of mind, even if the housekeeper comes an hour or two after the guest has checked out, as long as we have photos of the listing before they checked in. So in case anything is damaged, you just come and say, hey, we noticed the light was broken, for instance, and it wasn't broken when we came in. This is the photo of before, this is the photo of after. So we are going to hold you liable. So sometimes the guest cooperates. They're like, yeah, it happened by mistake. I'm sorry. How much is it? Go buy it, send them a receipt, and everything is settled. If they don't cooperate, you just take a photo of it, and in case they don't respond to your request, you can send it to Airbnb and tell them, hey, your guest came in, they checked in fine, but then the light is broken. This is the receipt for which I purchased this item.
Okay.
Kindly compensate us, or try to reason with the guests that they can compensate us. And in which case that fails, Airbnb actually compensates you
And then they'll
for
follow
the
with
distraction, and then they'll follow up with the payment. Because the biggest thing with booking online is a lot of the payment methods are kept on file.
Yeah.
So they know this is your debit card that you used to pay, or this is the phone number that you used to pay. So in case you try to scut, like, hey, we have your payment information. So in case you don't respond to this, we're going to charge it to your card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Insurance is important.
Yeah.
And when people are coming into Airbnbs, they usually have expectations, especially when it comes to returns. Do I want to ask it venye any normal Kenyan atauliza inarudisha immediately ama unangoja, because that's exactly what people will come and ask you, like, how long should I wait to see substantial profits? Or now we are talking in the business perspective, not the people who are coming to do it as a hobby. How long? Okay.
I think the most important thing is I think once you already know your philosophy of why you want to do it, you can kind of gauge before you're you start to see returns. And so it depends with your experience, because if you're starting out, maybe you're opening your first Airbnb account, you don't have any reviews. So your profile won't necessarily be at the top of
Yeah.
search. So if somebody searches for an Airbnb, say in Kilimani, you open your first Airbnb, you don't have any reviews or anything, Airbnb can't particularly rank you. So I think when you're starting, it's more so important for us to try to build some traction. You can, I would rather you focus on trying to get reviews and testimonials from other clients
Yeah.
before you start to
Yeah.
look towards the returns.
Getting the return.
Yeah. So even when somebody's starting, I tell them, okay, try to give it at least a 3-month buffer where you have no expectations, and also try to recommend whenever you're planning your budget, if you have the extra finances, try to keep some extra in case you're paying rent.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't give your returns
Return even
as
for
quickly as
rent.
possible.
Yeah.
You can have some extra emergency fund just to top up for the first 3 months while you try to build your rep.
Yeah.
And also I say this particularly because whenever you're beginning, you're competing against people who already have experience. They have
And
maybe
they have
100
very good
reviews.
reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're starting in Kilimani. Yes, you've ticked all the boxes. You have the amenities, you have the beautiful apartment, good photos, everything you've done correctly. But then you're competing against somebody who's done this for longer, has more listing, or maybe is even a professional host.
Someone like you.
And when you're starting, if you're competing against them, you need to take small wins very quickly.
Very quickly.
So if maybe a host is charging $100 a night, maybe in that apartment, you can come in and say, you know what, maybe to get my first reviews really quickly, let me put it at 80.
Yeah.
You see? So if somebody's coming to book, they might have a bit of an incentive. Maybe this person has a beautiful apartment and more reviews, but then say it's the same apartment and you have the same design, everything is tasteful, and you're going at 80, they're like, okay, let me try this new host out. So once you get your reviews and you've already built traction, then you can say, okay, maybe your first guest comes and books for a month. The question of how long I will start to gain or to get a return on my investment shortens to a month. For someone else, it's 2 months. For somebody else, it's 3 months. So the philosophy might also end up determining how long it takes before your Airbnb picks up. So if you do everything right at the beginning, your time will definitely be shortened. But if you do everything opposite way, you're going to be waiting a longer time before you get your return.
Yeah, and you've said also you need to have extra budget for these extra months. Another thing people need to know that they should have extra for is marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk branding.
Let's talk branding and marketing.
Let's talk branding. How do you make your property stand out?
Okay. I think branding first begins with you as an individual. So if I give an instance on Airbnb, there are things we call themed properties.
Okay.
So whenever you're filtering out for listings, we are all familiar with the apartment Airbnb, where you go, a unit is inside an apartment and you book and you go and stay there. But then there are different types. So you can go for cabin. Sometimes you can go for special design listings. So like, let's say if it's themed to, maybe you are a big Teletubbies fan, for instance, and you're setting up a themed house for kids. So you can actually set up an Airbnb maybe with a room that is tailored more towards families, so they can have kids. Maybe they have toy cars drawn on the wall and everything. So determining which category you fall into,
Your target audience.
your target audience, again, it goes back to it. Remind me your question again. I think I might have lost track a bit.
How you make your brand stand out.
Oh yes.
How you make your guests
'Cause you've already-
feel. How you make your guests feel like wako special. They have an unforgettable experience.
Yeah, because the first thing was we now know that you
Setting
need to
out
set aside a
money.
bit for marketing. So how do you market yourself?
So I think it's more so to try to theme it either it's that, if it's something external that is very popular, say you're setting up an apartment that is tailored towards kids, you can go in that direction. The other thing which is more so very common, let's say in Nairobi for instance, is you try to give, depending on the budget you are in, one is to try to make the home itself feel like a home. So at home, if you love making sandwiches, adding a toaster inside the house adds to the experience. And part about branding your apartment is trying to make sure you tick all the really relevant amenities that might differentiate you from somebody else. So if you come into an apartment and let's say it's a middle of the range apartment, and the guests who are coming to the apartment who are booking other listings, maybe there's something tiny that you can try to differentiate yourself from them. So let's say, for instance, you have something like Netflix added. All those tiny things actually fall into the category of personal branding, because it's not necessarily going to be you or the person itself behind it, but somebody can tell if this listing was furnished by Dennis, for instance.
Yeah.
They can know, okay, Dennis loves to go for a certain type of finish. He loves to add certain appliances. Make sure that if somebody is coming to stay, for instance, if maybe it's a long time, if somebody wants to whip up a meal in the house, if you open the drawer, you will find sufurias, you will find spoons. Everything is
There for
there.
you.
So if somebody maybe wants to do something outlandish like bake, for instance, they know, okay,
It's possible.
so and so's listing always has these things.
Yeah.
So if they come and book, even if it's for long term or short term, maybe they're having a weekend party. They're like, I don't have to buy these things because I know when I get there, I'll get baking sheets.
Yeah.
I'll get a baking tray. So personal branding is more so trying to tailor the house itself first to look like what you will love. If you love staying there, I guarantee you there's somebody who will love staying there. And then outside of it is now branding in terms of how you market your listings aside from platforms. So like if I say Centum for instance, Centum has its properties, and whenever Centum is doing its own thing, you can tell there's a similarity.
Yeah.
So if I give an example of Riverbank, for instance, if you look at all the properties around the Centum property, you can say, okay, this is how the branding is done. So they have a certain quality, a certain color palette that they go for, a certain standard that they go for with maybe staff, or when it comes to stuff like hygiene or finishing inside the houses. So personal branding is more so trying to go the extra mile to add your personal touch, but to everything, because you remember, we're dealing with things that are inanimate. So if it's this studio, for instance, you can tell if maybe somebody comes and watches this podcast, and they can tell instantly from the sound quality, this is definitely the good company. You see? So that's how personal branding works, particularly for this situation where you're dealing with things that are entirely inanimate. You're trying to give them life. So if you are a plant person, try to decorate your place to look botanical.
Do yourself.
You see?
Yeah.
So that's how I would recommend somebody to differentiate themselves. And also sometimes you can steal ideas, because they're very beautiful listings. Sometimes you just have to look, because like this guy is doing X, Y, Z. I can try and copy this.
I have a problem with people going for the whitewash
Beige aesthetic.
aesthetic. I feel like we're losing creativity. So I really appreciate your tip here. Be yourself.
Yeah.
You genuinely don't have to do copy paste someone else's. You can, if you like funny looking mats zenye zinakaa colorful with fluffy and nini, and that makes you feel, ooh,
wow, I want to be here.
I want to be here. Put that in your house.
Definitely.
If you want to put art, something, put that in your house. I think that's a very guys, don't follow the masses.
Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Because I remember there's this Airbnb I went to, and I don't know why it's the one thing that stood out, but I haven't seen it in another one. There were like 3 different shower gels. Now for me, something I enjoy
Ni
shower gels and showers. Like I have 6. Why? I don't know why I have 6 shower gels. But when I went there, I can tell you I still have her number. Yet I only know that BNB listing in Nyeri. I'm not sure when I'll go back there.
But for sure when you go back.
For sure when I go back, because she had a shower gel for like the warm weather, the cold weather. And I was asking myself, I want to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
I
that's
get
a very
it. I
good
get
tip.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm just thinking about the future, because now normally we think about the future of any business you're in. You say, where will I go? Where do you think Airbnbs will go in the future in Kenya? Like, do you think kuna
Future.
a good future? Do you think kuna future
First of all,
First of
tuanze
all,
tu
do you
hapo,
think kuna
right?
future?
Okay. Okay, it's two ways. I think in Kenya, Airbnb still has a very long way to go because a lot of the things that if you go to look on Airbnb itself, even without going to a different country, maybe say you open using a VPN or something, just look at how Airbnb is doing in other countries. You can actually browse, see other countries' listings, how people set up everything, and the type of unique houses that they have. I think we still have a huge way to go in terms of the type of creativity we can apply to our listings.
Yeah.
In terms of policy as well.
Yeah.
In terms of everything to do with taxes and all that. Zoning laws and all those things. They still have very huge way Airbnb can go compared to other places. In the current climate, I think there's been a shift because the one thing I noticed is from 2020, there was a huge boom in Airbnb because after COVID, everybody wanted to travel. So in Kenya, if you had an Airbnb at the time, you were making money in your sleep because it was a very new concept. There weren't too many listings. There was a lot of demand, but very little supply. But now we've kind of started to reach to a threshold in terms of supply.
And then supply.
Actually, yeah. So supply is a lot, but demand isn't. Imeanza kupungua. And also that's primarily in part to do with a lot of government policies that are in place right now. And also the state of the country, because it is very difficult to ignore it. The amount of spending power Kenyans had 3 years ago, 4 years ago is very different from right now.
Yeah.
It's true. It's not the same.
So that is a huge marker because Kenyans have improved in terms of their listings. But then if your demand doesn't have the expandable income to come and say, hey, we want to go for a staycation over the weekend or maybe for a week. If it was maybe $50 a night in 2023, but right now we're having to go at 80, that $30 difference takes out a lot of the population from coming and booking Airbnbs. So the future of it can be very bright, but a lot of aspects of the current environment need to change dramatically to make sure that there's going to be a balance where if you're starting an Airbnb at 3,000 or your Airbnb is at 40,000 a night, or even I see very expensive listings, mansions and everything.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone and everybody can participate because when I'm happy, if the next person has expandable income, they can spend more with me. But then if they're focusing more so on their basic needs, Airbnb is becomes more of a luxury item rather than something that we might indulge in on a common day.
Yeah.
You see? So Airbnb still has a long way to grow, and I think it's very possible because Kenyans, we're very innovative. Like, I meet people who do crazy things, and they have a capacity to impact this space in a very huge way. And I think if we try not to embrace it, we might actually end up to a point where we are stagnating because everybody got into this to try to make money, but then if nobody's making
Hakuna mtu,
money,
yeah.
and also it's
damn.
kind of natural for Airbnb because as with anything, there are a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
But then for you to differentiate yourself
You
past
have
a
to be
certain point,
innovative.
you have to be innovative with everything. So Airbnb entering is very low. But then maintaining it over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that's where now a lot of filtering comes up. Maybe Airbnb changes the algorithm, or maybe people's interest changes, or maybe like right now, like the way you mentioned, there's a lot of migration towards a certain aesthetic. So even people who are booking want to gravitate towards a certain aesthetic. So that also influences it. So if that aspect isn't necessarily monitored for in the long term, we might actually end up hitting a point where we have very good listings, but then we have very frustrated hosts and guests, and nobody is helping each other. Yeah.
Speaking of policy, and I think you've mentioned it, which policy would you like Kenya to have? You're very passionate about financial incentives to help people get into it. I don't know if that's a policy you'd want to be there in Kenya.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is different between here and other places is, yes, they want to collect taxes and everything, but then how you go about it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Because if this is an industry that is up and coming, you want to encourage people to join. So if whoever's directing the policy at KRE, for instance, if they come down and talk to hosts and say, okay, so this is how it runs, like if you're going to be setting up any taxes or policy that is going to be affecting short-term rentals, for instance, or long-term rentals, we can say, okay, if this is the average that somebody is going to be making in a month, and we compare it to however much it's going to be equivalent to in the real world if you're going to do shopping, pay rent, and all those amenities. If it doesn't make any sense and you want to encourage people to actually join this, then it's better to actually say, hey guys, so if you guys want to join this thing, we're going to put a lower threshold for joining and how much you're going to be paying in tax, just to give incentive, so that by the time everybody who's joined when the threshold is low and they've advanced up the stages and maybe they have 2, 3, 4, 5 listings and they're generating enough income to a point where they can say, okay, if I'm going to be paying 16% tax on every reservation that is going to be coming in terms of VAT or any other tax that is going to be applying, they can say, okay, if I'm charging $100, I won't try to transfer the entire cost to the guest, to the point where if you're running an Airbnb and you're charging
too expensive.
you're going to price everybody out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So I think the policy aspect plays a huge part into it, and also to Kenyans in general, because it's not just Airbnb policy or short-term rental policy. It's every other policy. If it's health, if it's education, if it's
Transport.
if everything is well-rounded,
Structure.
then everybody will benefit subsequently as a result of better policy.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much covers all bases.
Yeah. And now finally, there's someone out there who's probably on the fence about getting into the Airbnb business. What would you like to tell them right now? Like, what piece of advice would you give them?
Biashara ni biashara. If you are coming in here, particularly if you are too focused, like the money is very important, yes, but
It's not only.
I think understanding the process and where you can create value will be a better way to go about everything, because the money will be a side effect. Because when you see it as a side effect, you will have you will have better peace of mind, and you'll make your decisions more rationally as opposed to trying to adjust for end month. Yeah.
And is there something, baby, you would have done differently?
Yeah.
Now, looking back,
Yeah.
as you just wrap up, do you think, oh, I should have? Oh, I should have.
Something I would have done differently. I think something I would have done differently is try not to compromise too much on the why we started this thing, because how we set up listings, or whenever somebody approaches to get assistance with setting up a listing, is we try to do things a certain way. And initially, when you're at the beginning, I kind of had the jitters. Like somebody approaches you with something, and because I hadn't set out to go and consult for people, sometimes they will ask me and they will give me the green light to go and decide on everything. I think if I try to follow the culture that I would like to impart in all the way I do things, it tends to catch on. So if we agree, as say for instance, we have an Airbnb in an apartment and there are a lot of hosts, and there's a certain culture we'd like to maintain, and there's a certain pricing we'd like to maintain, and a certain set of amenities we'd like to maintain, such that the guests who are coming have a better experience, it goes a long way in helping the entire collective of hosts and anybody who's trying to get into Airbnb, and the guests themselves as well, to have a better experience. And once the culture of it shifts, everybody's happy. It becomes very difficult to hear an instance where somebody went and checked into an Airbnb and maybe something heinous happened, and it's like, hey, Airbnb, these guys are doing, because it destroys the reputation for everybody. So right now it becomes a lot difficult to navigate, because maybe if you're taking an apartment, for instance, and you're paying, say, rent is 40,000. If somebody hears you're doing Airbnb, they're like, okay, you are doing it for business, so your rent is going to be 60,000. See? So we're trying to get to the business and try to keep costs as manageable as possible, and without compromising the quality of the service. But that also entails that we have to have a culture shift, one in terms of how we view other people's property, and also how about we go about any entrepreneurial endeavors as well, because ultimately you're interacting with everybody doing any business. So I think if I was a bit more steadfast on how I wanted to do things, I would have avoided certain pitfalls. And also, once you do that, it kind of also filters for the type of client you get, because they know if you go to Dennis's, any of Dennis's listings, he does things a certain way. So they're like, even if it's at 3,000 or 30,000, they're like, hey, this is Dennis's apartment, we try to. But then if it spreads, like, my life would have been a lot easier if I started that way. And I think that's maybe the one thing I wish.
Actually, speaking of listings, Dennis's listing.
Plug yourself. Plug.
Nimesikia uko na ka listing pale Riverbank. Listing yake pale Riverbank. Plug yourself.
Okay, so the listings I do manage, they are going to be available for booking. I will share all the Airbnb links and my contact information as well if you're looking for long-term rentals. We have them in specific locations, but in case you also want me to help you search for something, you can also get in touch. We have a huge community of hosts where we get in touch. Sometimes we have meetings. We go and do some team building activities. You can also tag along. Sometimes it isn't necessarily just being the host. You can also come and join as a guest to try and understand how the other side works. So that next time unaingia kwa Airbnb usibebe vijiko zetu.
Oh, that's nice. We really appreciate you being here. At least now I have a direction on where to start, because it's, and even for people who are not really entrepreneurial like that and they don't know what business to start, you can come to Dennis akuambie how to start. You can let him manage for you. It's like plug and play. I just get the cash at the end of the month.
Yeah, actually, kind of.
Yeah, kinda. So that's cool. Like, I don't have to think too much
about it. And also, if you want a property, maybe to start with, Centum Real Estate does have property.
Yes,
we do have them in 2 Rivers. Imagine your BNB is in a mall, guys.
Yeah, we also have in Vipingo now, beachfront.
Leafy. Imagine uko kwa bara unapunga what? Hewa
Ni bara
ni mbaya. But anyway, if you want us to connect you, we can connect you. We do have properties in 2 Rivers and in Vipingo,
and in Entebbe, Uganda, at the beachfront Apple Lake Victoria. So we have everywhere. You can check them out. Imagine Summertide is coming and you don't have an Airbnb around the coast, and now you're missing out on cash.
Ebu kwanza, ata to post tuonyeshe easy BNB.
The photos will be here.
See the BNBs that you're talking about. And I think tuneza close the session.
That's a wrap.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and just one tiny thing.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to give a special mention. I think one of the people that have been really pivotal in this operation, per se. I won't necessarily mention them, but I will mention one of them, particularly Knight Frank and the team at Riverbank as well. They've been a great assistance. They're actually the ones who granted me this opportunity, because typically you wouldn't find me walking around on a podcast. But Eunice, Daisy, the team over there, Knight Frank, or any other Knight Frank managed property, if you do get somebody who allows subletting there, you will have an amazing experience. I will definitely recommend that.
For the guys who are wanashanga Centum and Knight Frank manages currently manages Riverbank Apartments. So Daisy, Eunice, hi guys.
You're doing a good
You're
job.
doing a good
Clearly.
job. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you so much
Thank you so much.
for coming
And for enlightening.
Yes.
Me, I've got a few tips, beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
That's the greatest Nini I've gathered today.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Do not follow the masses.
Know your why.
Yeah, know
Then
your
know
why.
your how.
And then,
Enjoy the business.
yeah. So this has been The Real Conversation.
See you next week. Same time, same place.
Bye-bye.